Here now, Dan Henninger from the Wall Street Journal. He's also a Fox Business contributor. Nancy has a new haircut. Maybe she's feeling very full of herself on that note. But what do you make of her basic misunderstanding of what causes inflation and her pathetic deflection of the topic?
Well, I make that it's slightly, or more than a little bit, frightening, Dagan. I mean, last time I checked, she was the Speaker of the House of Representatives, third in line to the presidency, and she has no basic understanding of how inflation happens. In fact, she thinks it's a good thing. You know, inflation is really the last refuge of political scoundrels, and the way she's talking evokes memories of Argentina and Evita, the idea that we have done so many things for you. We have spent trillions upon trillions of dollars. We have filled your pockets with money, and you should be grateful, notwithstanding the reality, as every American knows, that inflation is outpacing any wage gains they are realizing right now. She thinks this is a winner, and she must be one of the few people who think that.
Well, she's going after Joe Manchin on this, and if people smartly read the Wall Street Journal editorial page every day, which I do, even on Saturday, they will know what, quite frankly, the American people know what causes inflation. And as the Wall Street Journal said on Friday, that it's not just spending by the federal government, it's the spending that they're doing that is being then the debt sopped up by the Federal Reserve. So the two go hand in hand. So she's trying to dismiss Joe Manchin when he's much more on point with reality.
Yeah, Senator Manchin has been pointing out the dangers of the spending that they were embarked on since Joe Biden became president. And he said, look, those trillions upon trillions you are pumping into the economy run the risk of being inflationary. And he was a voice, Democratic voice anyway, crying in the wilderness. Inflation was relatively low when Joe Biden got elected president, but when they kept spending all of those trillions, added to which the Federal Reserve kept interest rates down close to zero, the inevitable result was that all of this liquidity sloshing through the economy would eventually start to raise prices. And the Democrats have a big problem now because the inflation, as many people in business are saying, is permeating every sector of the business economy, not just top line prices, but mid-level manufacturing. Everything is seeing price increases. And Dagan, that is not going to change before the November elections. And Nancy Pelosi is whistling Dixie if she thinks that is a winner for her party.
Before I move on to the next thing I want to ask you, I'll just read. Sometimes when you read what she says out loud, it's even more laughable. She said, what unifies us is the empathy that we have for America's working families and the priority of meeting their needs. You actually show empathy. You don't say that you haven't. And I've always made the joke that she, goes into a Waffle House and orders a coq au vin. She's so disconnected from the American people. And I think that it's on display here.
Yeah, it sure is. I mean, in that interview, she said that we are doing so many things for so-called kitchen table issues: food, rent, your children's education, medicine. All of those things are attached to programs and spending bills that the Democrats have enacted. And, quite frankly, it all does add up to socialism. The federal government pays for everything. And it basically comes down to bribing voters into rewarding them for pumping so much money into the economy. But it really does kind of play the average voter for a fool, because she also said in that interview that she was lowering taxes. No serious person believes that you can create that many programs, that many entitlements, and not see taxes eventually rise on working class people. And so she is basically trying to talk the American people into believing something that the facts on the ground, as they're happening right now, completely undercut her argument. She just is really undercutting her credibility.
So here's what the Washington Post editorial board wrote. They wrote an op-ed about and the Journal over the weekend wrote a similar one talking about the Democrats trying to get rid of the federal gas tax temporarily. but the Washington Post is in favor of actually raising it. They wrote this: the sound way to protect Americans from oil price shocks is to cut the nation's reliance on oil. Raising the gas tax would do that, encouraging consumers to drive less and to buy more fuel-efficient cars without clumsy government mandates. This might not be the most convenient message for Democrats ahead of November, but it is the best long-term response to the nation's oil addiction. So this paper of the people, as they might like to refer to themselves, is talking about making people's financial lives that much more painful when you have gas at multi-year highs.
Yeah, and how is that a political winner, especially with gas? And in addition to gasoline being in multi-year highs, you know, up in our part of the country, Dagan, the Northeast, New York, one hears people talking all the time about the absolutely shocking utility bills that they are getting this winter. And that is not just a function of the weather and the temperature, but the fact that Joe Biden has taken so many steps to suppress oil and gas production in the United States. And the utilities and energy companies are not making the capital investments at the moment needed to keep the flow of energy going. And so prices have been rising. And the argument that raising taxes now on people who are already paying higher prices through inflation, I mean, the Washington Post may want to make that argument. They're not running for anything. But how the average Democrat thinks they're going to go out there in November and get reelected on an argument like that has to remain a mystery.
And but to connect before we go, because this General Jack Keane is coming up, but Dan, what Joe Biden and the Wall Street Journal has written about it early and often, what Joe Biden, starting on day one, did to our energy sector. It's not just the Keystone XL pipeline, which wasn't, you know, only part of it had been started construction. It was the killing federal leases for oil and gas. It was the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It was basically going after financial funding for fossil fuel companies. But if you look at Putin's aggression over the years, it is highly correlated to oil prices. Invasion of Georgia, 2008, oil at an all-time high, $147 a barrel. Crimea annexation, 2014, around $100 a barrel. And today, oil's close to $100 a barrel. So we have encouraged Putin to Putin's aggression.
Oh, there's no question about that. I mean, he's playing the energy card. The Russians are smart. They saw which way Joe Biden and Democrats were going early in his administration. The progressive left of the Democratic Party is absolutely obsessed with climate, and they're willing to take any steps necessary, such as raising taxes on energy, suppressing energy production, to get to their goals. And that's, you know, that's part of our domestic politics. We fight about it. But Vladimir Putin and people over there in the Kremlin and Moscow are sitting there looking at it and saying, this is an opportunity for us. And yes, they have incentivized Putin to play the energy card. And look what has happened now with Germany, really very reluctant to join us wholeheartedly in pushing back against what he's doing in Ukraine because they are so wholly dependent on Russian gas. It's a terrible situation. And Joe Biden has kind of put us in it.
Dan Henninger, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Dan.
Good to be with you, Dagan.